This is undoubtedly the most authentic doomsday survival novel of the year. No space, no system. All that remains is the game of human nature. Urgent notice due to the super typhoon set to land in our city tonight. Residents are advised to quickly stock up on supplies if they wish to survive. Please take defensive measures, minimize outdoor activities. This is the 18th official notice I've received today. It seems the super typhoon circulating on the internet is indeed a once-in-a-century event. The entire city had been officially declared on holiday. With a week off at once, I turned to look at the red sunset outside the classroom. There is no sign of an impending typhoon. Just then, my mom sent me a text, Xiaoyang. The weather forecast says there's a typhoon tonight, after school. Don't forget to go to the supermarket with your sister to buy some food, just in case. In theory, each city is a coastal city, and typhoons are relatively frequent in normal times. I don't know why the authorities are placing such emphasis on it this time. Putting down my phone, Shanmin from the next table waved at me. Shanmin is a typical doomsday survivalist, constantly wandering on various major survival forums. Even his pocket money had been converted into supplies piled up at home. Leaning in, Shanmin, with a serious expression, said, Xiaoyang, do you know? I've met a big shot on China's survival forum. He's a senior neighbor at the meteorological observation station. According to him, in recent years, they've observed some strange weather phenomena. However, after reporting it, not only was it not taken seriously, but he was also transferred from the Port Authority by superiors. I feel that something is really wrong, that's why I'm telling you. After school, it's best to stock up on some supplies and medicine just in case. Seeing his anxious demeanor, I couldn't help but sneer. Are you looking forward to doomsday so you can show off your skills? Listen to me, Shanmin. You better listen to me. I have a feeling this time it's real. Before I could say anything more, the bell rang, signaling the end of class. I couldn't be bothered with him, threw my backpack over my shoulder, and swiftly left the school. I had arranged to meet my sister at the supermarket, and for some reason, at this moment, the streets were crowded with pedestrians and vehicles as several times more than before. I was jostled by the increasing crowd. Paying no attention to the people being evacuated forcefully at the subway entrance or the plane flying dangerously close to the edges of tall buildings in the sky. It was exactly noon when I finally reached the supermarket. Hastily, I pulled my sister through the main entrance. With so many people, any delay, and we might have been left with scraps. As expected, the supermarket was bustling with shoppers, and the checkout line had extended several dozen meters. After my sister spent 2 hours making selections, we finally pushed our shopping cart and joined the long line. Just then, at the supermarket exit, the line erupted, accompanied by the sizzling sound of sparks. This attracted the attention of the people around, causing them to look up. What's happening? Did the power line short circuit? Could it be the influence of the typhoon? I heard that when a typhoon hits, it can cause power failures. Did you guys know? The subway in the city has stopped running, and many people are injured. The authorities haven't dared to report it. After that person spoke, there was a commotion around. Clearly, everyone was startled by this news. I took out my phone and looked at the class group chat for a long time. I was speechless. The discussion not only involved the subway accident but also someone posted a photo of a plane crash. Oddly, on my phone, I didn't receive any push notifications from media or short video platforms. Normally, explosive news like this should be reported by all platforms. My sister tapped me on the shoulder and asked, didn't you see it when you left school? If you didn't, then someone must be spreading rumors. Don't overthink it. Let's get in line quickly. Just as my sister finished speaking, sparks began to crackle overhead in the circuitry. Before the people in line could react, a sudden and intense explosion echoed. I quickly shielded my sister beneath me, and the next moment the severed hand flew over the ceiling and landed in front of me. I hurriedly covered my sister's eyes with my hands, fearing she might witness this gruesome scene. Although my sister didn't resist, the screams of the people around us indicated that something terrible had happened. I glanced at the source of the explosion not far away and told my sister, it's microwave oven explosion. An incident occurred. Don't think too much about it. Let's go home quickly. The photographer girl was also shocked at this moment. I called her several times to check out, and she finally reacted after completing the payment. My sister tugged at my foot and whispered, should we go back and buy more things? Something feels off, hearing her words. I quickly pushed the shopping cart and filled it with instant noodles, biscuits, chocolate, and bread. While checking out again, I received a call from Shanmin, and as soon as I answered, I could hear the urgency in Shanmin's voice. Yan, something's really wrong. The subway and airplane accidents mentioned in the group are true. There are a lot of casualties being reported outside. and survival forums are buzzing with discussions. All radio channels have been banned. Looking at any one incident might not seem significant, but when you put them together, it's definitely not normal. I'm telling you as a friend, you better stock up on supplies as much as possible of food, medicine, antibiotics, vitamins, and most importantly, water. After delivering this message, Shanmin abruptly ended the call, and I couldn't reach him again. My expression turned serious as I pondered his words. Eventually, I decided to trust him this time. After all, the stockpiled items were all food. Even if not needed immediately, we could consume them gradually. My sister rushed back into the supermarket and made another round of purchases, filling to more large carts. Afterward, my sister and I, with several loaded shopping carts, headed to the underground parking lot. At this point, my mom had been waiting in the underground parking lot for quite some time. Seeing the multitude of items we bought, her eyes widened. "I told you to stock up, but not to this extent," she exclaimed before I could explain. Without further delay, I quickly called my mom over to help load all the supplies into the car. Fortunately, my mom's vehicle was a 8-seater family car, but even so, it was packed to the brim. After loading everything, my sister and mom drove home, while I rode my bicycle towards our house from the supermarket entrance. Our house is a 3-story self-built building. The first floor is rented to a childhood friend who runs a convenience store, and the second floor is leased to newcomers we rarely interact with. When I reached the 3rd floor, they had already tidied up the room. Just as I was about to rest, Shanman called again, sounding particularly urgent. "Yang, don't forget to stock up on medicine bottles and vitamins. Also, get some more cash. According to the guy from the China, there might be a major power outage after the typhoon." After saying this, he didn't wait for my response and abruptly ended the call. Looking at the fully stocked room, I found it amusing that I actually believed him. Nevertheless, I decided to go out to a pharmacy, not intending to hoard large quantities of medication as he suggested. Instead, I planned to purchase a modest amount of each. With my mom's approval, I took his bank card to withdraw some extra cash. Everywhere now accepts mobile payments. But having some cash on hand could be more convenient in case of a power outage. Before leaving, my mom asked me to stop by her workplace to find and Lee and collect the keys. She mentioned that Lee might take half a month off due to some personal matters. When I arrived at the pharmacy, the pharmacist looked at me with a puzzled expression, wondering what had happened today for everyone to come stocking up on medicine. I chuckled, evading her question. At that moment, I received a message from Shanmin on my phone. Strangely, I could only see half of the content, and the information about medication was all garbled. Experiencing mobile message garbling for the first time, I didn't think much of it. I just tried to get as much medicine as possible. In addition to visiting the pharmacy, I sent a text to Shanmin, saying, "Look, I trust you so much. With just a word from you, I've converted my entire $2,000 allowance into medicine." Oddly, after a while, Jiangmin still hadn't replied to my message. Following that, I went to my mom's studio to get the keys. Unexpectedly, as soon as I entered the elevator, it malfunctioned. I found myself trapped inside the elevator with a mother and her child. Before long, we heard the voice of the security guard from outside. "Don't worry, I'll go find the maintenance personnel right now." I took out my phone, intending to call my mom and inform her of the situation. However, my phone had lost its signal at some point. I rubbed my head, wondering why everything was going so wrong this afternoon. After a short while, the security guard returned. "I'm really sorry. Due to the typhoon and the holiday, the maintenance technician is rushing over. Please stay inside and don't move around." Listening to the security guard's voice, the woman seemed visibly upset but didn't say much. Before long, it started to drizzle outside. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the typhoon, accompanied by a storm, suddenly made landfall in the city. The sky, which had been relatively bright, instantly turned pitch black. Pedestrians who couldn't make it home were desperately clutching onto lampposts to prevent themselves from being blown away. Suddenly, a piece of sheet metal, swept up by the strong wind, smashed into the elevator. Although it didn't break the tempered glass of the elevator, it frightened the woman and child, causing them to cry loudly. While comforting the child, the woman shouted at the security guard outside, "Why hasn't the maintenance technician arrived yet? Are they planning to leave us trapped in the elevator to die?" Despite the woman's loud cries, there was no response from the security guard outside. Meanwhile, I sat on the floor, closing my eyes to conserve energy. However, after about 15 minutes, a dazzling light pierced into my eyes. I thought it might be the maintenance technician arriving and quickly opened my eyes. At the same time, I heard the woman's voice. "What's that in the sky? Why is it so bright?" Turning my head, I saw a glaring light in the pitch-black night sky. The light alternated between red and green, rendering the entire city as if it were a ghost town. From a distance, the light looked like a colored glass crystal enveloping the city. It was the aurora. How could there be an aurora in a coastal city like H City? Did the meteorological observatory make a mistake? The real disaster wasn't the typhoon but a solar storm. No wonder there were so many power failures today. I quickly pulled out my phone to check, but the screen still showed no signal. The solar storm could cause widespread elevator malfunctions, meaning H City would be in a blackout state for an unknown duration. Almost everyone in the city had stepped out of their rooms or halted their vehicles to admire the once-in-a-lifetime aurora phenomenon. As expected, all the cars, once turned off, couldn't be restarted. I looked up at the elevator with a solemn expression. The massive power outage caused by the solar storm wouldn't be resolved in just a day or two. I had to find a way to escape the elevator. Otherwise, by the time the storm passed, the three of us might not be in the best condition. Forcing myself to stay calm, I analyzed the situation before me. My mom knew I had come to the studio, and if I didn't return home, she would surely come looking for me. The security guard knew we were trapped in the elevator, and they had already called for rescue. It shouldn't take much longer. We were stuck in a sightseeing elevator, and once people outside noticed us, they would surely come to our aid. But for now, the quickest solution was to figure out how to open the elevator door. Having understood these factors, my nervousness eased a bit. Half an hour later, we were finally rescued by the maintenance technician. My mom had arrived 20 minutes earlier. When she saw me coming out, wiping away tears, she rushed forward and hugged me. Thank goodness you're okay. The aurora caused a citywide blackout. Let's hurry back home. If the typhoon arrives later, the heavy rain will be even worse. On the way home, we passed by a convenience store and stocked up on a full cart of supplies. Because we were uncertain how long the solar storm would last, we decided to buy extra as a precaution. By the time we got home, it was already 9 p.m. In the alleys, many migrant workers were cheering, grateful for the unexpected break from work due to the solar storm. When going upstairs, I stopped by my childhood friend Wei Ti's convenience store and bought 2 cases of bottled water. I casually reminded him and his family that the solar storm was coming, suggesting they also stock up on supplies. After that, I carried the water upstairs. As soon as I entered, I noticed 2 large gas canisters at the entrance. It seemed that while I was out, my mom had arranged for someone to deliver 2 additional gas canisters. With the one we were currently using, we had enough gas to last at least 2 months. However, thinking about those living in high-rise buildings, it occurred to me that they might face difficulties. After the power outage, natural gas supply would likely be cut off. By that time, even having a meal might become a problem for those people. At 11 o'clock at night, the sky remained unusually bright. After dinner, unable to resist, I looked through the window and marveled at this once-in-a-lifetime dreamlike sight. Knowing for sure that it was a solar storm brought me a sense of relief. Based on my knowledge, solar storms typically lasted no more than a month and a half. The supplies and medication we had stockpiled were enough to sustain our family of 3 for 2 months. The only downside was the upcoming days without electricity, internet, or games. At night, the typhoon, accompanied by heavy rain, made a rumbling sound. Within a few hours, the torrential rain submerged the entire alley. In the early morning hours, as I lay in bed tossing and turning, unable to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Recall the day's experiences, I couldn't pinpoint where the problem lay. It wasn't until the 5th day after the appearance of the aurora that the heavy rain had been continuous for 5 days and nights. The aurora disappeared on the 2nd day of the power outage, around noon. With the aurora gone, it seemed like the sun had been taken away as well. The torrential rain enveloped the entire city, plunging it into total darkness. Most people didn't panic due to the heavy rain and power outage. Although there was no internet and many forms of entertainment were gone, at least they didn't have to go to work and endure their boss's scolding. Some welfare units even promised substantial salary subsidies after the power outage ended. The ones truly affected were those struggling day by day at the bottom of society, coming from a family with a middle-class background. I couldn't fully understand the hardships of the laboring class. However, I knew that after the major power outage in Europe last year, most of the casualties were among the poor. Some even claimed it was a significant purge of societal refuse. For the past 2 years, there had been a blogger online claiming to be a time traveler, releasing a set of predictions. The 6th prediction referred to the major power outage in Europe last year. According to the blogger, that year was just a precursor to the apocalypse. With many people freezing to death in a short time, the 7th prediction mentioned that the next year would mark the true beginning of the apocalypse. If the seventh prediction refers to the solar storm, it suggests that the impact of the solar storm is even more severe than last year's European solar storm. The title of that prediction was I Come From Hell, indicating that the apocalypse was truly approaching this year. I slapped my forehead in frustration, finding it ridiculous that I had believed in such inexplicable statements, even though we had been without power for 5 days. The government required supermarkets to remain open. However, the prices of goods kept rising, ensuring at least a short-term prevention of panic buying.